Good morning, everyone. Shabbat Shalom. I am Rabbi Jenni Greenspan for Congregation Beth-El here in Indianapolis, Indiana. And we're getting started with Torah Talk. I'm going to give us a couple of minutes, see if any others are going to join us live, and then I'll get started. As always, if you would like to go to the BEZ 613 website, bez613.org, and go to our Shabbat resources. For Torah Talk resources, you'll see the PDF of this week's Torah portion, which is Parashat Emor, available for download if you don't have a copy of the Etz Chaim Chumash at home. And as usual, I will quote the couple of verses that I'm going to focus on. And then if you would like to follow along and read more of the Torah portion later, I encourage that from that PDF. So I'll give a couple of minutes if anyone want to track down that PDF or come join me in just a moment. I have lots of Shabbat Shaloms already. Good morning, Shabbat Shalom to Cindy Harp, to the Seagulls, to James Roth, to the Ashworths. So good to see everyone already. Shabbat Shalom and good morning. Trying to check something. Shabbat Shalom to Larry Spector, Cheryl Toof, and to Ellen Hamburger, and to Ivana Gabovich. So good to see everyone. Good morning. Along and read more of the Torah portion later. I encourage that from that PDF. So okay, I was trying to check that I'm running so that I could show you. This is a special Torah portion this week for me. I said we're on Parashat Emor, which was, today marks the 20th anniversary of my bat mitzvah. So I was going to bring and share some of my bat mitzvah photos. I'm going to try, and I have myself set up on another device just so I can see if it shows. So this was me on my bat mitzvah, May 13th of 2000 for Parashat Emor. So this holds a special place. This Torah portion holds a special place in my heart, even still. And that was me with the Torah for the first time in a suit that my mom sewed for me, and wearing the talit that many of you might still see me sometimes wearing at Beth-El. Looks like it reflected. Here's one that's not encased in the album of me with my Rabbi of blessed memory. So you might recognize that talit. So this was my bat mitzvah Torah portion, Parashat Emor. So it still holds a very special place in my heart. So I want to say Shabbat Shalom, and thanks for celebrating my bat mitzvah anniversary with me in this way, even if we couldn't do it together in the building of Beth-El like I had hoped, and sharing this bat mitzvah day with one of our beautiful students who's will have her bat mitzvah at another time. But here we are. So today I'm also going to focus on the first two verses that I ever read directly out of the Torah. So if you want to follow along with me, either in the Etz Chaim Chumash or from the PDF, I am on page 726. If you are following along in a different edition of a Torah translation, I am in Leviticus chapter 23, verse 15. See, I share a bat mitzvah portion with Carol Stanfield's son too. So it's a good portion. Lots of us get to share it. And Shabbat Shalom to Carol and Shabbat Shalom to Marty Litt. So good morning and welcome everyone to one of my favorite portions of the year, because it got me started off in my Torah reading and in my Torah studies. So the very first verse I ever read out of the Torah was this verse, Leviticus chapter 23, verse 15. Usfartem lachem mimochorat hashabat miyom havietchem et omer hatnufa sheva shevatot tmimot tiyena ad mimochorat hashabat hashviit tisperu chamishim yom. And from the day on which you bring the sheath of elevation offering, usually called the Omer, the day after the Sabbath, you shall count off 7 weeks. They must be complete. You must count until the day after the 7th week, 50 days. Then you shall bring an offering of new grain to Adonai, to God. So we have this is where we get the commandment for counting the Omer, the period in which we are right now. Today is the 30th day of the Omer, which you heard the blessing if you joined us last night for candle lighting with Rabbi Dennis and Kenner Melissa and all of our teachers. So we are on the 30th day of the Omer right now. We were commanded in the Torah to count this Omer period, to count from after that 7th day, after that Shabbat, which is really treated as the first day of Passover. And it's done. That is done so that we aren't counting more than 50. If we went to the Shabbat during Passover, we might actually sometimes count 52 or 51, or it might be a little bit more. And so it was determined that that Shabbat in the verse must have meant the first day of Passover, that after the first day of Passover, if we have a second Seder, that's why we start counting our Omer on the second Seder. If you don't keep a second Seder, you still start counting that first night after the Chag of Passover, after the first day. And then we count for 50 days up until Shavuot, which is coming up in about 2 weeks now. Well, if we're on day 30, it's coming up in about 19 more days. So why is always the question. Why? Why should we count these days? Because it's interesting, these verses and this command to count the Omer come mixed in with the commands for all of our other holidays. And none of our other holidays require counting from one to the other. They just a date. Shabbat is, Shabbat. Today is Shabbat. Every other time that we fall on a Saturday, it's Shabbat, whether or not it's also a Chag. Pesach always begins on the 15th of the Hebrew month of Nisan. It has a date. Rosh Hashanah always has the first day of Tishrei, called Yom Teruah in the Torah, but has a date. They might in the Torah say the 7th month or the 1st month, but there's still a specific date. We don't have to count. We just know the date on the calendar. Much like most of our other events, once we put the date on the calendar, we don't need to count how many days from now until then. It's on our calendar. We know when it is. So why this counting from Passover to Shavuot? What is the purpose of marking every single day? Right now, we're in a period of living at home and trying to get through a period of staying at home and avoiding going out, maybe slowly reapproaching some of the outside world. And some people are counting right now. They're also counting this lockdown, quarantine, this time at home. And so it gets to a different question. Why do we do that? What is the purpose of counting days? Because it doesn't seem to just be so that we remember when Shavuot is, because we manage to remember the dates of every other day, every other holiday without counting. So I want to bring in 2 commentaries today about it that I learned from my teacher, Rabbi Sean Fields, earlier this week. One is summarizing, I'm going to summarize both. One is from Ramban, or Maimonides, who lived in Spain and then in Egypt and Spain and eventually Israel, who wrote the Guide for the Perplexed. And he said this counting is because we are excited for Shavuot. We are excited for Torah. On Shavuot, we mark the Sinai experience, the receiving of the 10 Commandments, the receiving of Torah. And Torah is our story. It is our culture. It is the parameters of what makes us, the Jewish people, us. And we're excited for that. We are looking forward to it. And so we should count for it. We should, much like children might count down to their birthdays, or couples might count down to their weddings, or I hope when we have students who count to their graduations, it's a day to get excited for. We're anticipating it. And so we count. Which leads me to a different question in response to Rambam, because I agree that there's a certain amount of anticipation in that we're excited for these days. But I also just said we usually count down for those days that we're excited for. And here, our tradition, we count our Omer up. Today is day 30. The day before it was day 29, not day 31. We've been going up in our numbers. And we'll end with 49 the day before Shavuot, rather than one more day till Shavuot. We didn't start at 40, now only one more day to Shavuot. We started at 1. We kept going, and the day before Shavuot will be day 49. So why are we counting up for something that we're anticipating? It's an unusual way to do it. Most of the time when I have seen people counting days up, it's things like this experience right now. People are not sure how long the restraint of lockdown, of quarantine is going to happen. And so we count the days up. I have a friend who actually was very sick and wasn't sure what her healing process would be. And she had to truly stay home, could not go to the grocery store, could not have friends bring her groceries easily. They had to leave them at the door. And it was just her and her cat. She lived alone. And she, on her Facebook, each day marked day 1. This is what I did today. Day 2. This is what I did today. She found a way to mark her days and keep them separate from one another so that she could keep going. And she was indeed anticipating when her healing would come, and thank God it now has. But she had to count up because she didn't know when the end day would be. Which brings me to the commentary from the Sefer HaChinuch, which means the Book of Education. He's one of the commentators who we don't really know what his name was, or at least I haven't seen what his name was, and is one that is better known by the name of his book, Sefer HaChinuch, the Book of Education. He said that we count the days of the Omer, not just because we're anticipating Shavuot and we're anticipating a special relationship with God or with Torah or with one another, but because we need that time to be anticipating what it will be like to be out of slavery truly, that we are moving from being slaves, we're moving from freedom from slavery in Passover, freedom to be a people at Shavuot. And that amount of time takes some healing and takes some hope for deliverance and takes some expectation of a brighter tomorrow and seeing a brighter future. In some ways, his explanation of counting, rather than a child looking forward to a birthday, reminds me more of someone who is in a recovery journey, someone who has decided that they need to confront their addiction and enter recovery and counting up. And each day is an accomplishment, and each day is one more day marking on the journey that I can keep going, keep going, keep going. There is a brighter future ahead of me. And so for the Sefer HaChinuch, we count out as a hope for deliverance, and we don't necessarily know the end date. In the case of the Omer, we do. We do know when we're going to stop counting. We're going to stop counting at the Shavuot holiday when we receive Torah. But the emotional part of the journey is not one that always has a clear end date. It is just simply counting for the sake of marking that we have accomplished something on a path toward hope. And I think one of my friends, when we studied this together, a young woman named Myra Meskin, who's to become a rabbi on May 18th, just a week away, or a week from Monday. And she pointed out that for so many of us, especially those who have been anticipating big events like her ordination ceremony, or like our high school and college seniors graduations, like our fifth and eighth graders graduations, moving from one time in their schooling to another. There's so many who have been anticipating something they've been working toward for years, and suddenly it doesn't look the same anymore. And there's something very painful about losing anticipation. And so perhaps this moment right now is coming to remind us that we can keep counting. We can keep marking our days, hoping for a brighter future that we know is coming. We know, as we have already started to see more and more opportunities for healing and for getting out, we know a brighter day is coming, even if we're not quite there yet. And so we are now reminded we can hope for a brighter future, and we can find ways to readjust our anticipation and give us back a very true human need for anticipation. So I would suggest this week, find something small to look forward to and to anticipate. It might sound silly, but one I have been doing is a mystery knit along, where someone gives just a piece of the pattern each week for the shawl. So I have something to look forward to, the next piece of my knitting pattern. For those who are feeling the loss of the bigger events, of graduations, of larger wedding ceremonies, larger bar and bat mitzvah ceremonies, we can give ourselves the gift of remind ourselves that those accomplishments still exist. We have worked hard for those moments, and we can still anticipate celebrating them. We can adjust how we're expecting to celebrate them. We can celebrate them in this way. in the short term, and come back to celebrate in a larger way, face to face, in a future day. So I wish us all the blessing of counting out of joy and excitement, and counting out of a reminder of hope, and letting each day bring us one step closer to something beautiful and joyful and brighter. So I want to say Shabbat Shalom. Thank you all for joining me. And say Shabbat Shalom. I see. I think I've gotten to see everybody in the comments, and I am so thrilled that you all join me each morning, each Shabbat, and I will anticipate getting to join you again next Shabbat for Parashat Behar Bochukotai, when we will end our reading of the book of Leviticus. Shabbat Shalom to my daddy, Alex Romano. Shabbat Shalom, and I will see you all next week. And Shabbat Shalom.